Retirement dinners are supposed to be a kind of send-off into peace, right? Golden years, they call it. After 40 years busting your back for the same company, you're supposed to get a gold watch, a lukewarm speech, a few too many drinks, and a head full of fuzzy nostalgia. That's the brochure, anyway. Mine? Mine came with a side of betrayal and a slap in the face wrapped in legal parchment. The place was some upscale restaurant downtown. Candlelight flickering off wine glasses, people I barely liked pretending to care. I showed up wearing the same charcoal suit I wore to my first job interview in '85, the one my wife used to say made me look like a real man. That same wife was sitting across the table, fidgeting like she couldn't wait for something. My daughter and son were there too, trying to look grown up in their overpriced clothes, both of them flashing fake smiles like they were actors in a play I didn't audition for. The dinner droned on. My coworkers clinked glasses and gave speeches stuffed with corporate cliches. Loyalty, dedication, team player. You could have replaced me with a filing cabinet, and they'd have said the same things. Then, dessert came. Chocolate lava cake with a molten heart. Fitting. That's when my wife stood up. She tapped her glass like she was about to recite a eulogy. I figured it was just her chance to embarrass me with some long-winded story about the time I accidentally wore mismatched shoes to a board meeting. But instead, she handed me a manila envelope. "For your next chapter," she said, smirking. I opened it. Divorce papers. Neatly bound, freshly signed, except for my signature. I looked up. My son was grinning, my daughter outright laughing. "Your pension is ours. You're getting nothing," my wife said, like it was a line she'd rehearsed. And my daughter, my little girl, the one I used to carry on my shoulders through every state park from here to Montana. She leaned in with this venomous sparkle in her eyes and said, "Congratulations on 40 years wasted, old man." I sat there, staring at them. Three people I would have taken a bullet for, laughing at the man they thought they'd just gutted. I didn't blink. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I pulled a pen from my jacket pocket, the same pen I'd used to sign my first contract at the company. I signed the papers. Every page. Quietly. Deliberately. "I understand," I said. Then I got up, walked out of that restaurant, and didn't look back. The night was cold, and for once, I felt it in my bones. But it was the kind of cold that sharpens you. Back at the office, I gathered my things, a framed photo of our dog who died 5 years ago, a stress ball shaped like a globe, and a drawer full of forgotten dreams. No one said goodbye. No one even noticed I was gone. But I wasn't just walking away. Not really. See, what they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that I'd seen it coming. Not just the divorce, the betrayal, the whispers, the locked phone screens, the sudden girls' nights, and business trips that didn't add up. I saw it all. I kept records. I made copies. I paid attention. They thought they were clever, that they could gut me at my lowest, just as I stepped into retirement, thinking I'd be too old, too tired to fight back. But I didn't fight. I waited. 3 days later, my phone rang. 55 times. Voicemails. Messages. Desperate texts from my wife, my daughter, my son, all pleading for me to call back. Because everything they'd planned, the money grabs, the pension schemes, the asset transfers, had collapsed. But that part of the story, that's for tomorrow. The silence after that dinner was the sweetest thing I'd tasted in years. No nagging voice asking if I'd remembered to pick up milk. No passive-aggressive sighs from the other side of the bed. No lectures from my daughter about how I was stuck in the past. Just the hum of a refrigerator and the creak of my old recliner, the throne they'd mocked for years. 3 days of peace. And then came the storm. My phone lit up like Times Square on New Year's. 55 missed calls. Texts popping up faster than I could read them. All from the same 3 people who'd raised their glasses to my downfall just 72 hours before. "Please call me. We need to talk. Dad, something's wrong. Call me back, please." Suddenly, I wasn't the old man anymore. I was Dad again. Just like that. I didn't answer. I poured myself a coffee, black, bitter, the way she hated, and sat at the kitchen table in my new one-bedroom apartment. It was nothing fancy, just a place I'd quietly rented months before the dinner. No one knew about it. I'd furnished it with the essentials, a bed, a desk, a safe, and enough peace to think clearly. Because peace, real peace, is what you need when you're planning your exit. I didn't listen to the voicemails right away. I let them stack up. I knew the desperation would grow louder with each one. and I wanted to hear every note of it when I was good and ready. Instead, I went to the closet. I opened a thick manila folder. Inside were documents, printouts, bank statements, copies of emails, photos I never wanted to see but took anyway. A blueprint of betrayal, theirs, not mine. I'd been watching for a while. My wife, always guarded with her phone. She started dressing younger, more perfumed than usual, nights out with the girls that always ended with her slipping in at 3 a.m., reeking of lies. And my son? He'd suddenly developed an interest in my finances, asking if I'd named a beneficiary for my pension yet. Told me he'd help manage it when I retired. Sure you would, son. And my daughter? She used to be my world. The girl who fell asleep on my chest during movie nights, who cried when I left for business trips. Now she was telling her friends, through a very public social media post I wasn't supposed to see, that the old man finally croaked out of the office. Time to cash in. Cash in. Like I was a vending machine. Insert time, push a button, collect payout. That retirement dinner was their stage. Their performance. A twisted celebration of conquest. But I wasn't their prize. No, I was their test. And they failed it. The pension they thought they were walking off with? Not so fast. You see, a few months back, I had a long conversation with my lawyer, a real shark, the kind of guy who smiles with his teeth but never his eyes. I told him what I suspected, and we started moving things. Quietly. Legally. Strategically. We restructured the retirement accounts. Changed the beneficiaries. Created a trust. Shielded assets. Hid nothing. Just filed everything where it couldn't be touched. Every move above board. Every document signed and notarized. Ironclad. And when my wife served those divorce papers, she had no idea they were biting into a shell. An empty shell. Because the real meat of it, the wealth, the benefits, the security had already been moved beyond their reach. They timed their ambush to perfection, right at retirement, when they thought the checks would start flowing and I'd be too emotionally wrecked to fight back. But they were early. Too early. And 3 days later, their little scheme began to unravel. I finally opened the first voicemail. It was my wife. Her voice, always sharp, was trembling. Rick. I don't know what happened. The bank says the account is frozen. There's nothing in it. The lawyer said we should have waited. Please call me. Waited. Like there was ever a good time to stab someone in the back. The next voicemail? My daughter. Crying. Gasping between sobs. Dad. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean it. I was just angry. I didn't know Mom was gonna. Please, can we talk? My son's voice was the angriest. What the hell did you do, Dad? You think this is funny? We had a plan. You're screwing it all up. You need to fix this. Fix it? They broke it. They lit the match, poured the gasoline, and now they wanted me to put out the fire. I finished my coffee. Let the voicemails play out like a soundtrack to justice. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in revelation. And I wasn't done yet. You'd be surprised how fast people change their tune when money goes missing. People who once looked at you like a relic now stare at the door, hoping you'll walk through it like a miracle cure, hoping you'll forgive the knife in your back and hand them the handle. I didn't. Instead, I sat down with a sandwich and let them stew. Around voicemail number 18, I heard something new. Not desperation. Not rage. Panic. Rick, it's me again, she said, my wife, that woman I once kissed in a church and promised forever to. We made a mistake, okay? I know you're angry, but the lawyer said we can maybe reverse the filing if we act fast. We can fix this. Just, please, call me. Fix this. That was the phrase of the day, wasn't it? As if this was a leaky faucet. As if 40 years of marriage could be patched up with a phone call and a half-hearted apology after they tried to rob me blind. No, they didn't want me. They wanted the fallback plan. They wanted the pension. The house. The stability they thought was legally theirs. But I'd done more than just move accounts. I'd moved truths. That house they thought they owned half of. Transferred, quietly, to a trust in my late father's name. A trust that only activated when betrayal could be proven. A clause I'd added on a whim during a late-night meeting with my lawyer. A clause triggered by adultery. And the car my daughter drove? Still registered to me. Still financed under my name. Funny how kids don't read the fine print when daddy's footing the bill. Even the condo they'd been eyeing for themselves, where my wife said she was going to start fresh with a new life, had a deposit from a joint account I'd closed 2 weeks before the dinner. They must have thought it'd just work out. But life doesn't work out for thieves. Not in the long run. The more I thought about it, the more poetic it felt. They hadn't just tried to steal from me. They'd built their escape plan on sand, and I'd quietly drained the tide. That night, I listened to every single voicemail. All 55, each one like a note in a symphony of justice. I heard the shift in their voices, from arrogance to anxiety. And I realized something. They didn't just lose access to my money. They lost access to me. And that scared them more. Because for all their scheming, I was the constant. The one who paid the bills, fixed the leaky sink, answered the phone when the car broke down, showed up at every graduation, every ballet recital, every single moment they conveniently forgot the second they saw dollar signs. They thought I'd crawl back. I didn't. Instead, I made an appointment with my attorney, that cold-blooded genius in a three-piece suit who handled the legal gymnastics that saved my skin. I slid the folder across the table to him. Inside, printouts of emails, text messages, timestamps of my wife's midnight hotel visits, copies of my daughter's online posts bragging about the inheritance she was prematurely counting on. He flipped through them with barely a blink. Then he looked up and said something that made me smile for the first time in weeks. "You're holding all the cards." He was right. I hadn't burned the bridge. I just put a toll on it they couldn't afford. By the time the family realized the paperwork was irreversible, that the trust was sealed, the assets moved, the pensions redirected into my name alone, they had already begun turning on each other. My daughter sent me a message that night. I didn't know Mom was going to do that. I didn't even want the money. I was trying to protect us. Us. She still thought there was an us. I wrote back one line. You laughed. She didn't respond after that. That weekend, I heard from a mutual friend that my wife had been seen arguing in a lawyer's office, screaming about fraud and misrepresentation. Apparently, she thought I'd violated some agreement. But there was no agreement to violate, just an ambush that backfired. She wanted everything. Now she had nothing, just like she planned for me. There's a sound I'll never forget. It's not the laughter from that dinner, not the click of the pen when I signed away the remnants of a life they'd already gutted, not even the buzz of 55 missed calls. It was silence, the kind of silence that comes right after a trap springs shut. A week passed, 7 quiet days where I didn't respond, didn't explain, didn't rescue. I lived, ate, walked, slept better than I had in years. And they spiraled. I got wind of it through the grapevine. Old neighbors, mutual friends, people who weren't sure which side to land on just yet. Most stayed out of it, of course. But some they called. "Hey, Rick, I heard something strange. Are you okay? Is it true? Which part?" I asked. They never had a good answer. But I learned plenty. My wife had moved in temporarily with a friend, a co-worker from the yoga studio where she pretended to work more than she actually did. Word was, the friend wasn't too thrilled to have a house guest with 2 suitcases, a superiority complex, and a bank account that suddenly couldn't buy lunch. My daughter? She'd been counting on me to pay her graduate school tuition. Turns out the scholarship story was a lie, one of many I uncovered too late to matter. She called the school and begged for a deferral, then tried blaming the whole thing on my mental breakdown. And my son? That boy who once asked me to teach him how to shave? He'd been planning to invest my pension in some crypto startup with a friend from college. One of those fly-by-night operations that promises to revolutionize finance and ends with a bunch of guys staring at empty screens and lawsuits. The money never showed up. His friend pulled out. So did his girlfriend. I guess they were all discovering the cost of counting chickens before the farmer signs the deed. Meanwhile, I was thriving in obscurity. Woke up every morning, drank my coffee in silence, and watched the sun stretch across the floor like a slow, smug cat. I took up painting, not because I was good at it, but because it felt honest. Messy, unpredictable, full of color. The opposite of the life I'd just escaped. Then the letter came. Not a voicemail, not a text. A letter. Handwritten. Sloppy ink on lined paper like a high school essay. From her. My wife. She must have thought a physical letter would feel more real. Like ink could undo intention. She wrote about regret. About how she got caught up in things, how the kids influenced her, how she didn't think I'd take it so personally. Didn't think I'd take it personally. She handed me divorce papers at a retirement dinner like she was giving me a photo album, and she didn't think I'd take it personally. She ended the letter with this. We can still fix this. Maybe not as husband and wife, but as family. Family. They used that word like a passcode, like it still opened a door. I folded the letter, burned it in the sink. Watched the ashes curl like dead flowers. Then I went for a walk. 2 miles, no destination. Just me, a breeze, and the distant sound of a world that finally had nothing to demand from me. But don't mistake me for a saint on some spiritual journey. This wasn't healing. It was transformation. They'd taken what was left of my trust and tried to cash it in like a check. I wasn't going to reclaim that trust. I was going to make damn sure no one ever forged my name on it again. Because while they were busy calling lawyers and blaming each other, I was setting the rest of the pieces in place. There was one thing left they hadn't seen coming, and it was going to leave a mark. 2 weeks after the retirement dinner, after the calls, the voicemails, the letter that turned to ash, I went back to the house. Not to move back in. That door had closed the second she slid that envelope across the table like it was a party favor. No, I went to collect the last of what was mine. Not the big things. They could keep the television, the wine fridge, the sectional couch I never got to sit on without being told I was doing it wrong. Let them have the furniture. Let them fight over it. I wanted the intangible. My things. My history. What little hadn't already been trampled. I parked down the block. The neighborhood looked the same, but the air felt different, stale. Like even the trees knew something was off. I used my old key. She hadn't changed the locks yet. Must have been too busy chasing her plan B to worry about security. I stepped into a museum of someone else's memories. The living room was cleaner than I remembered. No clutter, no mail scattered on the entryway table. Her scent, that expensive perfume that always reminded me of wilted roses and cover stories, still lingered faintly in the air. But everything else felt staged. Fake. The family portraits were gone, replaced with abstract art and hollow quotes in picture frames. Live Laugh Love, in cursive script, hanging where our wedding photo used to be. I headed upstairs, opened the closet in what was once our bedroom. Half empty. Her side was stripped bare. Not just clothes, everything. Jewelry, luggage, her favorite shoes. Like she was already living somewhere else, with someone else. I found what I came for in the back of the guest room closet, an old wooden box. Inside were my father's medals, the pocket knife my grandfather gave me, a few letters I'd written but never mailed, reminders that I used to be a man with a story of his own, not just the supporting character in someone else's plot. I carried the box downstairs and paused in the kitchen. That's when I saw it. The paperwork. Left out on the table, almost taunting me. Sloppy. Half-finished. A copy of the divorce filing, scrawled on and reprinted multiple times, circled in red ink. Legal notes. A second set of property evaluations. And at the bottom, a sticky note in my daughter's handwriting. He'll fold. Just like always. Just like always. Like I was a lawn chair. A reliable collapse. They didn't just plan it. They predicted my reaction. Thought they knew me so well they could script my downfall down to the gesture. They didn't realize I'd stopped playing my part weeks ago. Back at my apartment, I called my lawyer. I'm ready, I told him. He knew what I meant. He'd been waiting. The next day, we filed a motion with the court, not to block the divorce. That was done. But to trigger the adultery clause in the marital agreement I'd quietly added years ago. My wife had no idea it even existed. See, back when she started spending more nights out with friends, I paid attention. Not just to her. To the law. I had our prenup revised under the guise of a routine estate planning update. I even suggested it during an anniversary dinner. Told her it was for protection, just in case something ever happened to me. She signed without reading it. And tucked in between clauses about survivorship benefits and power of attorney was one line, buried deep in the legalese. Infidelity, once proven, results in full forfeiture of claim to all post-retirement assets. I didn't need a courtroom drama. I didn't need revenge porn or public shaming. I just needed evidence. And oh, did I have it? Photos, timestamps, receipts, the hotel bookings, the late-night texts she thought I couldn't see because she deleted them, but forgot they still lived in the cloud. She made her play. Now it was my move. 2 months after that dinner from hell, I sat in a room colder than any I'd ever known. Not because of the temperature, but because of what was about to happen in it. A conference table, too wide for comfort. A pitcher of water no one touched. A stenographer with a blank face and a keyboard faster than thought. Across from me, her attorney, a man who looked like he was born with a Bluetooth in his ear, and beside him, my wife. I hadn't seen her since the night she handed me my dignity wrapped in divorce papers. She looked different. Older. Not in the way time wears you down, but in the way guilt and consequences do. Her hair was pulled back too tight, lips drawn in a permanent purse like she was bracing for impact. Which, in a way, she was. I didn't smile. I didn't scowl. I just looked at her like I was staring at a stranger who vaguely resembled someone I once loved. "Let's begin," the mediator said. And then we did. They went first, as expected. Her attorney tried to play the long-suffering spouse angle. Claimed she'd endured emotional neglect, loneliness, a cold marriage, that the divorce had been a painful, necessary step. He painted a story of a woman who had given everything and now just wanted what she was owed. I didn't interrupt. I let him talk, let her nod at all the right moments. Then it was my turn. My attorney opened the folder, quietly slid the evidence across the table. One copy for each person. The air in that room shifted, sharp, like a blade. Photos, dates, bank transfers to a hotel suite listed under someone else's name. Text messages, some sweet, some explicit, all damning. The attorney blinked. My wife didn't. She just closed her eyes for a long moment. My lawyer spoke calmly. No theatrics, no raised voice. Just facts. "This clause," he said, pointing to the document she'd signed years ago, "clearly states that proven infidelity results in the nullification of all financial claims against Mr. Emerson's post-retirement assets." He let that sink in, including, but not limited to, his pension, trust holdings, and real property acquisitions made within the last 10 years. Her attorney shifted uncomfortably. "This is invalid," he said. She didn't understand what she was signing. "We have a signed acknowledgement," my lawyer replied, pulling out another document, and a recorded phone call where she refers to the clause as standard stuff. It was all there. Ironclad. Untouchable. My wife didn't speak. The mediator cleared her throat. "We're going to need time to process this," she said carefully. We adjourned. Outside, I passed my wife in the hallway. For a second, she looked like she might speak. Say something, anything. But all that came was a whisper. "You really planned this." I stopped. "No," I said. "You did. I just didn't roll over for it." Her face collapsed in on itself. Not just with anger, but with something worse. Recognition. She finally saw the man she thought was a doormat, standing up and holding the keys to the empire she thought she'd inherited by default. I walked away. That evening, I got a message from my son. "You didn't have to destroy her," he wrote. I didn't respond. Because I didn't destroy her. She handed me the match and poured the gasoline herself. All I did was let the spark land. After the deposition, everything went quiet, for about 48 hours. Then the cracks began to split open like fault lines under a city built on arrogance. I heard through my attorney that her lawyer had withdrawn from the case. Something about undisclosed information and irreconcilable differences with the client. Translation. He saw the ship sinking and wasn't about to go down with it. That left her scrambling. Retainers don't pay themselves, especially not when the account they were counting on has been drained, redirected, and sealed tighter than a bank vault. Her new lawyer was a junior associate from some second-rate firm. Fresh out of law school, eyes still full of theory, no idea what to do when every move is checkmate. Meanwhile, my side was done playing defense. We filed to expedite the divorce proceedings based on breach of agreement and confirmed misconduct. The court granted it. Fast. Faster than she was ready for. Now, you'd think the kids might have stayed out of it. Chosen silence over shame. But no, that would have required dignity. Instead, my son, the self-appointed financial genius, showed up at my apartment. Uninvited. He knocked, loud and impatient, like it was still his house, like I owed him answers. I opened the door, didn't say a word. He walked in without asking. "You're destroying this family," he said, standing in my living room like it offended him. I let the words hang there, watched them drop to the floor and shatter. He didn't wait. "You didn't have to take it all, Dad. You could have left something for Mom. For us. She made mistakes, sure, but this?" He waved his hand like he was swatting away the mess. "This is war." I looked at him, long and hard. "Son," I said, "you stood by while your mother handed me divorce papers during a retirement dinner. Then you laughed. Laughed. That wasn't war. That was cruelty. Calculated. Clean. Planned. This." I gestured around the room. "This is justice." He scoffed. "You think this is going to end well for you?" I smiled. "I think it already has." He left. Didn't slam the door. Just walked out, quieter than he came in. Because somewhere, deep down, he understood. Not just what had happened, but what hadn't. I didn't humiliate them publicly. Didn't call friends. Didn't write articles. I simply removed the scaffolding they'd built their futures on and watched it collapse. My daughter's next. She emailed me. A clean little note with faux maturity and a subject line that read, "Let's talk." She wanted to meet. Just us. Said she needed clarity. I didn't respond. Not out of anger. Not even revenge. Just clarity. Because clarity is the moment you realize someone only knocks when their world is on fire, and they remember you used to have a hose. But I don't fight fires anymore. I light matches. She picked the cafe. Trendy, overpriced, and filled with the sound of people pretending to be busy. That kind of place. Where everyone orders coffee, but nobody drinks it, and the Wi-Fi carries more secrets than the people using it. I got there 10 minutes early. Sat with my back to the wall, just like I used to in the military. Old habits. Ordered black coffee. No milk, no sugar, no illusions. She showed up 2 minutes late. Her hair was perfect. Her nails manicured. Her coat probably cost more than my first car. Funny, considering she'd claimed she was struggling in the email. "Hi, Dad," she said, voice soft. Measured. I nodded. Didn't stand. Didn't smile. I wasn't there for theatrics. She sat down. Took off her sunglasses like this was some spy movie. The silence stretched. "I'm glad you came." "Don't be," I said. She blinked. Already off script. "I just wanted to clear the air," she said, folding her hands like a diplomat at a summit. "What happened with Mom, with the papers, it was wrong. I see that now. Do you?" I asked. Her jaw tensed for a half second, the kind of micro-expression you only catch if you've raised them. And I had. Every scraped knee, every school play, every stupid heartbreak they thought would kill them. I was there. Always. She sighed. "Look, I was angry. We all were. We felt abandoned. You were always working. You missed things. You don't know what it was like for Mom." There it was. The pivot. The psychology lecture. I leaned forward. "You mean the mom who waited until my last day of work, the day I officially handed over 4 decades of my life, to ambush me in front of strangers with divorce papers? That mom." She looked away. "No excuses," she said quickly. "I'm not here to defend her. I'm here because I need help." There it was. The real reason. She started talking fast. Tuition. Rent. A missed scholarship. Loans. How she might have to delay graduation. She even slipped in a line about mental health, hoping I'd flinch. Like compassion was a vending machine she could drop buzzwords into, and out would come a check. "I know you probably don't want to hear this," she said, "but I'm still your daughter." That one made me laugh. Not out loud. Not hysterically. Just a small, bitter chuckle that caught her off guard. "Funny," I said, "because I don't remember daughters laughing while their fathers got ambushed like criminals." Her voice dropped. "I didn't know they were going to do it like that. I swear." "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. "Because you laughed, Emma. Not confused. Not shocked. You laughed like it was a punchline you helped write." Silence again. This time heavier. "I made a mistake," she said, voice tight. "No," I replied. "You made a choice." She looked at me, really looked. Saw the man who used to build her forts out of couch cushions and read her bedtime stories. And for a flicker of a moment, I saw guilt. But guilt doesn't pay tuition. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I nodded. "I know." Then I reached into my jacket. Her eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas. But I didn't pull out a check. I pulled out an envelope. Inside, a copy of the bank transfer I'd made the day before. Not to her. To her school. Direct payment. 1 semester only. Sent with strict instructions and 0 room for withdrawal. I slid it across the table. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Her lips parted, unsure whether to thank me or curse me. "I'm not leaving you to drown," I said. "But I'm not giving you a raft you'll use to float back and stab me." Her mouth opened. Closed. I stood. "I hope you find your way, Emma. But you're walking it alone now." Then I left her sitting there, coffee untouched, sunlight catching on the tears she wasn't sure were real anymore. They say a house is just wood and nails. I used to believe that, until I stepped through the front door of my house one last time and realized what it had actually become. A crime scene. Not the kind with tape and detectives, no. The kind where betrayal left fingerprints on every surface, and you could still hear the echo of lies in the walls. After the court confirmed the infidelity clause and locked her out of any claim to my post-retirement assets, she panicked. I know because I got a text from our old real estate agent, the same guy who sold us the place 22 years ago. Said she'd contacted him in a frenzy, trying to list the house immediately, even before the divorce was finalized. She still thought it was half hers. She was wrong. See, the title had been transferred to the trust 2 years earlier. Quietly, legally, strategically. She'd signed the paperwork herself during what she thought was a routine refinancing I suggested while we were restructuring for retirement. She didn't read it. She never read anything unless it was gossip or something to complain about. So the house, legally, indisputably mine, not ours. And now it was on the market, but on my terms. I let her find out through the sign. She drove by one day, I'm guessing to remind herself what she lost, and there it was. For sale by owner. She called, screaming, "You can't do this. You can't just sell our home." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just said, "It's not our home. Not anymore." She didn't take it well. She showed up at the first open house, wearing sunglasses, trying to look casual like she just happened to be in the neighborhood. She walked through the living room, stared at the kitchen island where we used to drink Sunday coffee, and then turned to the realtor, a new one, not our old friend, and asked if she could just talk to the owner for a second. I stepped out from the hallway, wiping my hands on a rag from fixing a loose cabinet hinge. "Hi," I said. "I'm the owner." The look on her face? You can't fake that kind of fury stitched together with regret. "Why are you doing this?" she asked through clenched teeth. "Doing what?" "Selling the house. Our history." I let the silence speak first. Then I replied, "You cashed in your history when you traded it for a future with someone else." She flinched, like I'd reached across the room and slapped her, not hard, just enough to make her remember what reality felt like. "You don't need the money," she spat. "This is just revenge." "No," I said. "This is closure." She left before the second couple walked in, a young family with a baby in a carrier and dreams in their eyes. I liked them instantly. They didn't ask if the walls were soundproof or if the neighbors were nosy. They asked if the backyard had enough space for a swing set. They saw a future here, not a battlefield. That's who deserved the place now. A week later, we closed the deal. Full asking price. Clean. No contingencies. I moved the last of my things out myself. Didn't hire movers. Wanted to feel every step as I walked room to room, stripping the past down to its bones. Not out of nostalgia, but out of discipline. Like cleaning a wound before you sew it shut. Before I locked the door one last time, I stood in the kitchen. The same kitchen where she once danced in her robe to that old Springsteen song. Before everything curdled. Before ambition turned to resentment. Before she looked at me like a placeholder instead of a partner. I didn't feel sorrow. I felt free. I locked the door, left the keys in the mailbox for the new owners, and walked away without looking back. Because I wasn't just selling a house. I was selling the grave of who I used to be. The day the check cleared from the house sale, I didn't celebrate. No champagne. No fancy dinner. No grand, victorious, I showed them speech into the mirror. I just packed up a duffel bag, threw it in the trunk, and hit the road. No GPS. No destination. Just miles. I passed towns that didn't know my name. Ate in diners where the waitress called me Han, without a trace of sarcasm. Slept in motels with questionable curtains, but honest silence. And somewhere in that quiet, I started breathing like a human being again. Eventually, I found a place. A small cabin off the beaten path. 2 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and a view of a lake so still it looked like glass. It wasn't on Zillow. It wasn't in a brochure. It found me, the way good things sometimes do when you stop chasing and start listening. I bought it. Cash. No mortgage. No strings. No one to advise me on how to use my own money. The real estate agent asked if I needed help moving in. No, I said. Just hand me the keys. I furnished it myself. Slowly. Carefully. 1 chair, 1 table, 1 shelf at a time. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to touch every piece of this new life with deliberate hands. No hand-me-downs. No reminders. No history soaked in regret. Just now. One morning, as the sun spilled over the lake like honey, I brewed coffee and sat on the porch, barefoot, watching birds I didn't know the names of. No schedule. No demands. No one asking me to sign anything except maybe a delivery receipt for a new hammock. And then the letter came. Forwarded through the lawyer's office. Sent registered mail. Thick envelope. Fancy handwriting. It was from her. Again. I almost tossed it. Almost. But something about the weight of it made me open it. Not because I cared what she had to say, but because I wanted to be sure the past understood how unwelcome it had become. It wasn't a plea this time. It was a warning. Apparently, my daughter, the same one who cried over coffee while calculating tuition, had decided to contest the asset transfers. Said she was misled about the financial structures. Claimed I had coerced her mother into signing documents she didn't understand. I read that last part twice, then laughed so hard I spilled my coffee. She was making a legal move with a lawyer to try and claw back what she thought was rightfully hers. That's when it hit me. They weren't sorry. Not really. They were desperate. Not because they'd lost a father, but because they'd lost the ATM they dressed up like one. So I called my lawyer. Yes, I said. I saw the letter. He chuckled. She doesn't have a case. The court's already ruled. The statute of limitations is ticking. Even if she finds a judge who's willing to hear it, we've got enough documentation to bury it before it blinks. I figured, I said. But let's not bury it. Sir, let's answer it. Swiftly. Firmly. And make sure that if she files anything, even a complaint about my handwriting, we counter with every document, clause, and timestamp we've got. You want to go scorched earth? No, I said, sipping my fresh cup of coffee. I want her to understand something. What's that? That this is her last chance to walk away with her name intact. Because here's the truth. They thought I'd spend retirement golfing, dozing off in front of the TV, fading like a dying flashlight. But I was never their flashlight. I was the storm. And now, they were the ones looking for shelter. The envelope came on a Wednesday. I remember because the morning had been perfect. Coffee on the porch, sunlight slicing through the trees, and the smell of pine and peace. I was reading an old dog-eared mystery novel I'd found in a thrift store for $1 when the mail truck pulled up. Registered letter. Return address, a law office in the city. Not hers. Emma's. My daughter had filed. Official. Real. On paper. The filing claimed undue influence, financial manipulation, and, my personal favorite, intentional emotional harm resulting in economic disadvantage. You've got to admire the creativity. Her attorney, someone fresh, aggressive, and probably hungry for a case that might land a headline, tried to frame it like elder abuse in reverse. That I'd coerced her poor, innocent mother into signing legal documents without fully explaining their implications. That I'd used my position of authority and financial control to alienate my family and consolidate wealth unfairly. I called my lawyer. He was already laughing before I finished reading the first page aloud. They're desperate, he said. Desperation makes people bold, I replied. But it doesn't make them right. We'll file the countersuit immediately. Defamation, malicious prosecution, attorney's fees. The works. No, I said. Not yet. There was a pause. No. He echoed, cautious. I want to give them rope. As much as they're willing to grab. Rick, that's a risky game. No. It's a slow one. But it ends the same. Because here's what they didn't understand, still didn't, even after everything. They thought power was in the money. The pension. The house. The assets. But the real power? Was knowing when to stay silent. And when to speak so loudly the walls shook. I let them file. Let them spend. Let them squirm in depositions and scramble for proof they didn't have. Every document they requested, we delivered. Every piece of paper they asked for, we sent, neat, legal, bulletproof. I cooperated so completely, they couldn't find a way to spin it. And it drove them mad. Her lawyer tried to paint a picture of emotional neglect. Said I'd been cold, distant, obsessed with work. That my focus on career left emotional scars that manifested in impulsive decisions later in life. Translation. I worked hard so they could live soft, and now they were suing because the gravy train hit the end of the track. They expected me to snap. Lose it. Say something reckless they could use. But I didn't. Every answer I gave was calm. Documented. Measured. When they asked me about my daughter's schooling, I provided payment receipts, straight to the university. When they brought up the house, I provided the signed transfer of title, witnessed and notarized by her. When they tried to argue coercion, I submitted copies of text where she bragged about how easy it was to get me to sign anything when I was distracted. That one made their lawyer rub his temples for a full minute. Eventually, my daughter realized she'd misjudged the battlefield. She wasn't up against a bitter, broken man clinging to pride. She was up against someone who'd spent a career reading contracts, navigating landmines, and managing other people's messes. And now I was managing hers. At the second hearing, her attorney asked the judge for a continuance to gather more evidence. The judge looked down his glasses and asked, What evidence do you expect to find that you don't already have access to? They had no answer. I had all the answers. And the best part? I hadn't even played my final card. Yet, the courtroom wasn't packed. Just a few bored clerks, 2 attorneys, my daughter, and me. She wore black, like she was mourning something. Maybe the narrative. Maybe the control. Maybe just the comfort of thinking she still had power over me. I wore gray. The same color as the sky outside. The judge looked tired. He probably was. This wasn't a murder trial. No cameras. No press. Just another rich family cannibalizing itself over who got to keep the silverware. But I wasn't there for silverware. I was there to bury the lie. The hearing was short. Both attorneys gave their closing arguments. Hers leaned hard into emotional abuse, family fracture, undue complexity, and legal maneuvers code for he was smarter than us, and it's not fair. Mine was simple. Everything was signed. Everything was legal. And they just didn't like the outcome. Then the judge leaned forward, cleared his throat. I've reviewed the documentation, the prior rulings, and the submitted testimonies. He adjusted his glasses, looked at my daughter. There is no evidence of fraud, coercion, or misrepresentation. The trust documents are valid. The property transfers are valid. The prenuptial clause was legally enacted and signed by both parties in full capacity. A pause. I find no merit in the plaintiff's claim. Motion to contest is denied. Just like that. Bang. Gavel. Done. My daughter's face didn't twist. It didn't crack. It just went still. Still like the lake behind my cabin. Still like something that doesn't know whether to cry or scream. Her lawyer leaned over, whispered something in her ear. She didn't nod. Didn't move. Just stared at the bench, as if the judge might change his mind if she held her breath long enough. Outside, the sky finally broke. It started to rain steady, cleansing, uncaring. She caught up with me in the parking lot. "Dad," she said, voice cracking. "Please. You don't have to do this." I stopped, turned to face her, really face her. "I already did this," I said. "You just didn't see it until now." She blinked. Wet lashes. Red-rimmed eyes. "I didn't know they were going to do that at dinner," she said. "I thought it was just going to be a conversation. A warning." I waited. I was angry. I said awful things. But I didn't mean them. "No," I replied. "You meant them. You just didn't think I'd remember." She looked down. "I lost everything." I exhaled slowly. "No," I said. "You threw everything away. And now you're upset that it didn't bounce back." That stung. I saw it in the way her shoulders hunched, in the way her mouth twitched like she was about to defend herself but couldn't find anything worth saying. I stepped closer. Not to intimidate, just to finish it. You don't get to stab someone and ask why they're bleeding. You don't get to break a man in half and cry because the pieces cut you on the way down. I looked up at the clouds. "Rain's not gonna stop," I said. "You should go." I walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. That part of my life, the theater, the farce, the carefully curated performance of family, was over. And I had the ruling to prove it.